My husband humiliated me during a holiday trip, but he wasn't ready for the secret I was hiding. The sun was already dipping low on the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the pristine beach where Isabella stood, her bare feet sinking into the powdery sand. The salty breeze teased her tangled chestnut hair as she forced a smile, desperately trying to blend into the idyllic scenery. Around her, laughter floated like fragile bubbles, friends chatting animatedly, the clinking of glasses, the distant strum of a guitar mingling with the gentle rush of the waves. Yet despite the beauty surrounding her, Isabella felt like an outsider in this vibrant canvas, a quiet shadow amid the explosion of brightness. She pulled her thin shawl tighter around her slender shoulders, barely noticing the embarrassed stares from the group gathered behind her. They thought she was just shy, maybe awkward, and a little out of place. But the truth stretched far deeper than that fragile veil. For years, she had lived in the margins, always trying to hide the insecurities that clawed at her self-worth. Born into humble means, Isabella had learned early that kindness was both shield and chains, and she carried a secret weight beneath her gentle demeanor that only her own restless heart knew. The holiday trip had been her husband Michael's idea, a way to celebrate their third anniversary and perhaps rekindle something she feared was fading between them. They weren't wealthy by any stretch, but he insisted this getaway was a chance for new beginnings, a chance to forget the suffocating echo of their cramped apartment and the endless grind of her part-time job as a cashier. Isabella wanted so badly to believe in that promise. She told herself this was the fresh start they needed, that beneath the laughter and sun-drenched days, she could find a place in his eyes again. But as they wandered down the white sand path that morning, the carefully curated facade began to crumble. It started innocently enough, a teasing remark from Michael when she fumbled placing a fragile glass of lemonade down at the picnic blanket. His voice, light but laced with sharpness, cut through the carefree air. "Careful, Bella. You'd spill even the ocean if you tried." Isabella's cheeks flushed a deep rose, and she glanced around, hoping no one had noticed her stumble. But of course, they had. The group shared a few quick laughs, more at her expense than with her. She forced herself to laugh too, an unnatural sound that clashed violently with the pang in her chest. As the day unfolded, Michael's jabs grew more pointed in public. During a group photo, he whispered just loud enough for nearby friends to hear, "Try not to blink this time. Couldn't have you ruining the perfect shot again." The comment bounced around the circle, met with awkward chuckles. Isabella's eyes brimmed with tears as she looked down, heart tightening like a vice. In that moment, she was more invisible and exposed than ever. Later, as they settled around the fire pit by the water, Michael's teasing erupted into an outright spectacle. He launched into a crude joke about her cooking, something she had boasted about back home, painting her as clumsy and incompetent in front of everyone. His performance was cruelly practiced, each word dissecting pieces of her dignity. The others howled with laughter while Isabella shrank back, cheeks burning, fingers clutching the edge of her blanket like a lifeline. She fought to swallow the rising lump in her throat, willing the tears to stay hidden. She imagined vanishing, dissolving into the night air, far from the scorching spotlight of humiliation. That flicker of hope was swiftly extinguished when Michael leaned forward, his smirk sharp, and murmured, "Maybe you're better at losing than winning, sweetheart. Good thing I'm here to carry both of us." A bitter wave of shame washed over her, hotter than the embers glowing at her feet. The people she had once thought friends looked on with smirks or pity, some shifting uncomfortably. Isabella felt utterly cornered, trapped inside a small glass bubble of embarrassment that threatened to shatter at any second. How had it come to this? The dream of a joyous holiday now seemed like a cruel joke, a trap designed to showcase her flaws. She chastised herself silently, too quiet, too meek, too beneath him. But beneath that self-reproach, a raw ember of something else flickered, a quiet defiance, fragile yet persistent. "Isabella," whispered a gentle voice nearby. It was May, a coworker with warm eyes and an understanding smile, stepping closer. "You don't have to laugh at that. You're stronger than he knows." That small kindness felt like a flicker of light in the darkness, but the crushing weight of humiliation still pinned her down. Her breath caught in her throat, and she forced herself to nod, pretending to gather her composure. Inside, her mind raced, spinning questions with no answers. Was this how the rest of her life would play out? Was she destined to be overshadowed, silenced, a joke for others' amusement? The sun dipped below the horizon, and twilight cloaked the beach in indigo hues, mirroring the storm brewing inside her. Isabella's smile was gone, replaced by a wary, fragile mask. And deep down, a whisper began to grow. She would not let this story define her. Have you ever felt like the whole world was laughing at you, even when you tried your hardest to belong? Sometimes, the hardest battles are invisible, but not without hope. The next morning dawned bright and deceptively cheerful, the sky a crisp blue canopy over the resort's bustling courtyard. Isabella rose early, her thoughts tangled like the sheets she wrung between her fingers. Despite the warmth of the sun, an icy knot tightened deep within her as she prepared for another day shadowed by Michael's biting humor and the awkward glances from their so-called friends. She tried to remind herself that this vacation was supposed to be a fresh start, yet every interaction seemed to deepen the invisible chasm growing between her and the world around her. As they gathered for breakfast beneath the open-air pavilion, the clatter of plates mixed with animated conversations, but Isabella felt painfully isolated, as though a translucent wall surrounded her, muffling the happy sounds beyond. Michael, eager to entertain, orchestrated small games and challenges for the group, always casting ecstatic glances her way, but the mask she wore was starting to crack beneath his spotlight. During a trivia game that evening, the tension hatched into something cruelly sharp. "Oh, come on, Bella," Michael teased, his voice drenched in false sweetness. "You're making us lose again. We're never going to win with you on the team." His words sliced through the laughter, freezing the air. Isabella's jaw tightened, her throat ached with the effort to keep her composure. She glanced at the others, some smiled awkwardly, others exchanged uncomfortable looks, as if unsure whether to intervene or join in. Her heart thundered violently, the embarrassment loud and searing beneath skin and bone. Later, as they strolled alongside the beach, Michael throwing jovial jabs from behind, "Careful, you'll trip on your own feet," Isabella held herself stiffly, her hands clenched in fists at her sides. She hated feeling the all-consuming burn of humiliation creeping into her eyes again, the way her cheeks flamed like a signal beacon for scorn. Every whispered joke, every sideways glance from people familiar and foreign alike, wound tighter around her fragile sense of self. Inside, a whirlwind of doubt and sadness swirled relentlessly. What if this was all there was for her? A series of public embarrassments, each like a spotlight exposing her imperfections, fueling the silent narrative Michael was crafting about her being weak and inadequate. The woman he married, who he once said was brave and kind, now seemed distant even to herself. Suddenly, Michael halted and theatrically threw his hands up, drawing the attention of a nearby group gathering for a bonfire party. His booming voice echoed against the waves as he launched into an exaggerated recounting of a recent mishap, Isabella's blunder in an attempt to make homemade pasta that tasted awful, he claimed. The others erupted in laughter, several mimicking a gagging sound. Isabella's knees threatened to buckle, she gripped Michael's arm tightly but he shrugged it off with a smug grin. "Come on, lighten up, Bella. It's all in good fun," he chuckled. But the echoes of laughter weren't in good fun for her. They were daggers, carving away pieces of her dignity, making her feel smaller with every passing second. She wanted to disappear beneath the sand, to wipe away the teasing grins and the way Michael's eyes sparkled with cruel delight while her own blurred with tears. Without a word, she turned and walked away, the coarse sand rough against her bare feet. The night air was cooler, filling her lungs but doing little to ease the ache in her chest. Behind her, the laughter continued, but it sounded distant now, as if coming from far across a vast expanse, unreachable and cruelly indifferent. As she wandered toward the darker side of the beach, hands trembling, she stumbled and collided with a tall figure stepping out of the shadows. It was May again, her gaze gentle but concerned. "Hey, Are you okay? You don't have to take that, she said quietly. Isabella swallowed hard, biting back her shame. I don't know anymore. Maybe he's right. Maybe I really am just a joke. May shook her head firmly. No, you're not. You're so much more than what he says. Don't let anyone dim your light, okay? Not even him. That moment, brief as it was, kindled something fragile inside Isabella. A glimpse of the woman she wanted to be, the woman she once believed she was. But doubt clawed at her relentlessly. Could she find enough strength to fight back? Was she capable of rising after each fall, or was this humiliation the final blow? As the night crept in, bringing with it the cold quiet of the ocean, Isabella felt completely untethered, caught between the weight of despair and the flickering ember of courage May's words had sparked. She looked up at the star-speckled sky, wondering how many more nights like this she could endure and whether freedom from this torment was even possible. Have you ever faced a moment so raw and painful that it shakes you to your core? When your own heart wavers between holding on and giving up, what inner force do you reach for to ignite hope? Sometimes, the darkest hours reveal the first flickers of light, if we dare to look for them. Isabella's days that followed blurred into a tortured routine of pretending to be the cheerful wife her husband seemed to demand, a role she performed with trembling hands and a crumbling smile. Each morning, she woke heavy with dread, the memories of public humiliation weighing down her spirit like a relentless shadow. The vibrant colors of the tropical paradise felt muted, even the laughter of fellow travelers seemed to mock her anguish. Yet, beneath the surface of this quiet torment, a storm of conflicting emotions raged fiercely inside. Her nights were no safe haven either. Alone in their small bungalow, the walls closed in around her like a cage. Michael's absence after the day's cruel theatrics offered no comfort, only the deafening echo of loneliness. She wrestled with a growing tide of self-doubt, wondering if she had been naive to believe in happiness, in love. Was she truly the woman he now disparaged? Or was this just a twisted game he played, a mask hiding something far darker beneath his charming facade? Isabella's heart ached with a profound isolation. At work, she was the same, polite, diligent, yet hiding a searing pain that made even simple conversations feel burdensome. The cheerful smiles of coworkers like May became precious lifelines, but even those moments were fragile, like the fragile pages of a forgotten diary. Desperation simmered beneath her composed exterior. One afternoon, while stacking shelves during her part-time job, a customer's offhand comment pierced through the guarded walls she had built. "You're so quiet today, Isabella," he said, voice laced with a patronizing kindness. "You sure you're cut out for this sort of work? Maybe you should aim higher." Her fingers faltered, a box teetering precariously before crashing to the floor. A collective gasp rippled through the nearby shoppers. Heat bloomed across her face as she scrambled to gather the scattered items, her throat tight with unshed tears. The sting of humiliation mirrored painfully the experiences from the trip, each word like a fresh wound. Later that evening, as clouds blotted out the setting sun, Isabella sat on the worn bench outside her modest apartment. Her usual refuge felt hollow tonight. She pulled her cardigan tighter around her thin frame and closed her eyes, allowing herself a rare moment of vulnerability. The questions gnawed relentlessly. Was she destined to be overlooked, ridiculed, invisible? How many times could she endure rejection before her spirit broke completely? Yet, amid this desolation, a sudden, delicate warmth spread through her, a faint whisper of resilience that refused to be silenced. It came from the memories of May's steady gaze, the kindness in her words, and the small, rebellious hope igniting within her chest. Isabella realized she was more than the sum of others' judgments, more than the jabs and sneers that had become routine. That realization opened the door to a secret she had guarded fiercely for so many years, one she had tucked away in the darkest corners of her past, fearful of revealing it even to herself. The secret wasn't just a story or a memory, it was the fragile foundation of her strength, a truth capable of shattering the chains of shame and rewriting the narrative that Michael had spun. But revealing this truth was dangerous. If it came to light, it could upend everything: friendships, family, the precarious balance of her life. The thought terrified her, yet the alternative, to remain bound by humiliation and silence, was worse. Isabella began to sketch a plan, small and tentative at first, one that might allow her to reclaim her dignity and reshape her future on her own terms. In the quiet hours before dawn, she penned words into a journal she had kept hidden beneath the mattress, words of courage, memories, and dreams. Each letter was a seed planted against despair. This was the beginning of her journey from victim to victor, a private rebellion fueled by an unyielding belief in her own worth. Her heart fluttered with cautious hope, but shadows lingered. She knew the road ahead would be treacherous. Would the people around her be ready for the revelation she was about to unleash? Would Michael's facade crack? And most poignantly, could she find the strength to stand tall when faced with the storm her secret might bring? Sometimes, the greatest battles are fought alone, in silence, far from the gaze of those who would judge us. Have you ever hidden a truth so deeply that revealing it could change everything? What would it take for you to find the courage to share your hidden light with the world? The path to healing had just begun, and Isabella was determined to walk it, one shaky step at a time. The night the truth came tumbling out was unlike any Isabella had ever experienced, a collision of pain, fear, and unexpected strength that shattered the fragile veneer she had clung to for so long. It was supposed to be just another tense evening at the resort's communal dining hall, the air thick with laughter and chatter, but beneath the surface, Isabella felt the pressure growing, a storm gathering within her soul. Michael had once again begun his cruel routine, picking at her insecurities with practiced ease. His voice carried across the tables, genuine only in its cruelty. "Remember when Bella almost burned down our apartment trying to cook that one dinner? Maybe we should keep her away from the kitchen altogether." Some nearby voices chuckled, others exchanged glances that made Isabella's skin crawl like prickly ice. Her fingers clenched beneath the table, the knot in her stomach tightening until it seemed impossible to breathe. Then, unexpectedly, the moment that had terrorized her mind for weeks caught fire, and with trembling lips she spoke, barely above a whisper at first but growing steadier with each word. "There's something you don't know about me, Michael. Something I've kept hidden because I was afraid it would change everything, because I was afraid you wouldn't love me anymore. But maybe it's time you understood the whole truth." The room slipped into silence like a held breath. Eyes fixed on her, curiosity mixed with a probable expectation of embarrassment or weakness. But Isabella refused to falter. She looked deeply into Michael's eyes, the man who had stripped her confidence so many times in public with callous jabs, and she unfolded the story she had locked away for years. She revealed the scars beneath her gentle exterior, how she had survived an abusive foster home as a child, how the shadows of neglect and rejection had shaped her fragile self-esteem, and how, despite the darkness, she had fought to become the woman sitting before them, kind, hopeful, and proud despite the odds. She spoke of the strength it took to love and trust again, and how every cruel laugh, every degrading word from Michael, reopened wounds she thought were healing. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some faces softened in understanding, others deepened with shock, and Michael's expression morphed, shifting from amusement into disbelief and then icy anger. "So this is your excuse?" he spat, voice harsh. "You think that means you can't handle a joke? You're weak, Isabella. Always have been." The words were knife-twisting, but Isabella steadied herself, drawing from the well of courage she'd been nurturing in the quiet hours. "No," she said firmly, "it means I'm stronger than you ever believed. And I'm done letting you tear me down." At that moment, an unexpected ally stepped forward, May. Quiet up until then, she stood beside Isabella, unwavering. "You're not alone," she said, eyes blazing with fierce loyalty. "We see you, Isabella. And anyone who can treat you like that doesn't deserve to stand beside you." A murmur of agreement nudged others to rise, the tide turning as disapproval for Michael's behavior knitted itself into the atmosphere. For the first time, Isabella felt the weight of isolation break away, replaced by a tentative community of support. The humiliating days that had seemed endless were suddenly infused with possibility, a strange, electric hope. Michael, sensing the shift, became defensive, trying to regain control, but his words stumbled against the rising chorus of voices condemning his cruelty. The man who once laughed at her pain was now exposed, his facade cracking beneath the glare of truth. As the night deepened, Isabella's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a growing certainty that this was the turning point. The secret she had guarded so fiercely was no longer a shackle but a shield, a beacon that drew in strength from unexpected corners. Yet, even amidst the swirling storm of change, uncertainty lingered. The road ahead was unforgiving, and Isabella knew deep in her bones that healing would not come overnight. Friendships would be tested, illusions shattered, and self-doubt challenged at every turn. But for the first time in a long while, she felt the exhilarating taste of liberation, proof that even the most humiliating moments could birth transformation when met with honesty and resolve. Have you ever dared to reveal a secret that terrified you, only to discover it became the key to your freedom? Sometimes, when the world seems darkest, the light we carry inside can blaze a path forward, surprising us all. The night ended not with answers, but with a promise, the promise that Isabella's journey toward reclaiming herself had truly begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days following the revelation unfolded like the turning of a storm, turbulent and raw, yet charged with an undeniable energy. Isabella walked through the resort with a new posture, no longer bent under the invisible weight of shame but standing just a bit taller, eyes gleaming with the quiet fire of someone who had claimed her truth. Michael's mask of mockery had started to crack, his sarcastic remarks losing their sharpness as his friends and bystanders began to see beyond his facade. The atmosphere between them thickened, electric and fraught, like a tightly coiled spring ready to snap. Michael's bitterness turned to frustration. In private, his smiles faded and the anger simmered beneath his words. He tried to undermine Isabella subtly, cutting remarks, dismissive gestures, but the crowd that once giggled alongside him now mostly looked away, some even offering supportive glances toward her. The dynamic had shifted, and Michael found himself fighting a battle without allies. One afternoon, under the sweltering heat of a noon sun, the situation reached its breaking point. The group was gathered by the hotel poolside, the laughter and chatter light but with an undercurrent of tension. Michael, refusing to be overshadowed, launched into a particularly barbed diatribe about Isabella's supposed flaws, her timid nature, her inadequacies in handling social situations, and how she was a burden during the trip. Isabella's neighbors tensed, unsure how she'd react. She could feel every fiber of her being screaming to shrink away, to avoid yet another public spectacle of humiliation. But instead of retreating, something deep and fierce ignited inside her. She calmly stood up, took a deep breath, and addressed the group in a voice steady and clear, though carrying the weight of all the pain she had endured. "Michael, enough," she said firmly. "You've tried to define me with your cruelty, but you don't get to decide my worth. I am not the mistakes you point out, or the jokes you think are funny at my expense. I am more than that, and so much stronger than those moments." A hush fell over the gathered faces, some blinking in surprise, others nodding slowly, as if absorbing a long-awaited truth. Her words cracked the tension, rippling through the crowd like the first clear notes of a song long unsung. From the silence, May stepped forward again, lending her unwavering support, and a handful of others found courage to voice their own thoughts, solidarity in voice and spirit. Michael's face flushed crimson, veins throbbing along his temples. "You think you're better than me now?" he snarled. "You'll never escape who you are." And with that, Isabella shook her head resolutely. "I don't need to escape," she replied quietly, yet with absolute certainty. "I'm learning to embrace who I am. And if you can't accept that, it's your loss, not mine." That marked a turning point, not just for their relationship, but for Isabella's entire world. The walls that Michael had erected to belittle her began to crumble under the resilience she radiated. Slowly, the atmosphere around her shifted from one of judgment to one of respect. Conversations once filled with gossip and mockery gave way to quiet moments of encouragement and recognition of her courage. The vacation that had begun as a relentless parade of humiliation transformed into a crucible of transformation. Isabella's journey from silent victim to vocal advocate for her own dignity was no longer a secret battle. It had become a visible, powerful stand that others could witness and draw strength from. Yet, amid the growing empowerment, Isabella remained grounded by the knowledge that healing was a process, a path she would continue to walk one brave step at a time. Each day presented new trials, moments of self-doubt, and the lingering shadows of old fears. But the gleam in her eyes was unmistakable, a beacon of hope, courage, and the hard-earned victory of claiming one's true self. Have you ever faced someone who tried to diminish you, only to discover that reclaiming your voice was the mightiest victory of all? When we stand firm in our truth, the world has no choice but to take notice. Isabella's story is a testament to the power within us all, to rise, to fight, and to shine against the darkest odds. The journey was far from over, but Isabella was no longer afraid. Her dignity restored, her spirit unbroken, she had begun to write a new chapter, one where respect, strength, and self-love were the unmistakable headlines. And this time, she would be the author of her own story. The final evening of the trip arrived softly, wrapping the resort in a serene twilight veil that seemed almost symbolic of the transformation Isabella had undergone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of lavender and amber, Isabella found herself seated on the veranda of their modest bungalow, the gentle waves whispering against the shore as a soothing soundtrack to her thoughts. The woman who had arrived uncertain, bruised by humiliation and self-doubt, was now a far cry from the timid figure hidden beneath the shadows of Michael's cruelty. She breathed deeply, savoring the crisp ocean air, feeling the weight of the past weeks lift like mist in the morning sun. Around her, the atmosphere hummed not with whispered gossip or biting sarcasm, but with a subtle thread of respect and understanding that she had quietly cultivated through courage and honesty. The community that had once watched her falter was now witnessing a woman reclaimed, strong, clear-eyed, and profoundly at peace with herself. Michael was distant tonight. There were no cutting remarks, no forced smiles. Perhaps even he sensed the irreversible shift in their dynamic. The quiet power Isabella now wielded was not one of loud confrontation but of unwavering self-possession. For the first time, she saw him stripped of his arrogant bravado, a man faced with the consequence of his own cruelty. Yet, even as she acknowledged the pain he had caused, Isabella's heart was unburdened by resentment. Forgiveness, she realized, was not a gift for him but a healing balm for herself. May joined her on the veranda, settling beside Isabella with a warm smile. "You've come so far," she said softly. "I'm proud of you." Isabella looked up, eyes shimmering with gratitude and quiet strength. "It wasn't easy," she admitted. "There were moments I wanted to give up, to hide forever. But I learned something important. My worth isn't defined by how others see me. It comes from within, this truth no one can take away." The journey had taught her that vulnerability was not a weakness but a source of authentic connection and courage. By exposing her scars and standing tall in the face of judgment, she had unearthed a power she never knew she possessed. It was a lesson she hoped others would find inspiring, especially those who had ever felt invisible or diminished. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Isabella felt a profound sense of peace settle within her. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but she no longer feared it. She was ready to meet whatever lay ahead with open eyes and an open heart, armed with the knowledge that self-love and resilience could transform even the darkest chapters into stories of hope. Have you ever discovered strength in your most vulnerable moments? Remember that the scars you carry can be the very marks of your survival and growth. Our deepest wounds often harbor the seeds of our greatest triumphs. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. See you in our next story.